Earlier this week, I went over to have dinner with some new friends of myself and my wife. We don't know them super well, but one of them bought a painting that my wife painted a few years ago, and they invited us over initially to come and see the painting where they'd hung it in their house. And the guy who'd bought it, I knew from the conversation that we had with him when we went to visit their house the first time, that he wasn't religious, but he'd grown up in a religious family, a Christian family. And he, as he'd gotten older, had had some profound spiritual experiences, but there's no way that he would talk about them through a traditional Christian lens. And one of the reasons why he said he bought the painting was he actually felt like the painting that my wife had done created space and connection between what spirituality had been for him as an experience and what it looked like religion had been as an experience for his parents. And so we were going back for dinner for kind of round two of conversation with these people, and my hunch was, given the way that we talked the first time we met, that at some point someone would probably ask me a question about how my faith was different than his spirituality. And so as I kind of imagined what it was going to be like to go over and have dinner with this guy and his husband in their house, I started to think, well, what is it about my faith that is different than a spirituality which had for him been profoundly real, but wasn't connected to Christ? And the first thing that came forward for me then was that it is connected to Christ. That is what's distinctive about my faith. Everything about what I've experienced that's good of God is pointed towards Jesus. Jesus is the concretization, the making specific and hard and real and touchable. Jesus is the concretization of who God is and how God engages with creation and humanity, with the proud and the poor and with everyone in between. When Jesus says, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father, I only do what the Father's doing, I only say what the Father's saying, he is pointing to himself as the realization of every good thought humanity has ever had about the one in whom we live and move and have our being. But what makes my faith different from a type of spirituality that's not connected to Jesus, as well, is that Jesus goes beyond just the concretization of who God is and how he's engaging with creation and humanity. Jesus actually turns our thoughts about the one who is our source, our savior, our sustainer. He turns our thoughts about God into a way of life that not only encounters heaven but expresses it. He turns our thoughts about the one who is our source, our savior, our sustainer, into a way of life that not only perceives grace but participates in grace. He gives us a livable faith. And so there's this account in Matthew's remembering of Jesus' life in chapter 5, where Jesus looks around and sees that a multitude of people have been drawn to him to find a specific kind of spirituality, one that is centered on him and what he's showing them about God and about life. And as he starts talking to them, he talks about what he's ushering in these terms. He says, you're blessed when you're at the end of your rope. With less of you, there's more of God and his rule. You're blessed when you feel you've lost what's most dear to you. Only then can you be embraced by the one most dear to you. You're blessed when you're content with just who you are, no more, no less. That's the moment where you find yourselves proud owners of everything that can't be bought. You're blessed when you've worked up a good appetite for God. He's food and drink in the best meal you'll ever eat. You're blessed when you care. At the moment of being careful, you'll find yourselves cared for. You're blessed when you get your inside world right, your heart and your mind put right. Then you can see God in the outside world. You're blessed when you can show people how to cooperate instead of compete or fight. That's when you discover who you really are. and your place in God's family. It seems to me that these, for Jesus, as the first words that he says in the beginning of an exquisite teaching in Matthew 5-7, these are his big stones, the foundations. Christ bless you this year.